Welcome to the Service MVP Podcast. This is where you go to learn how to use pure motive service to create higher value to grow your results. And now, here is your host, America's Service Sales Coach, Joe Crisara.
Hello, this is Joe Crisara, America's Service Sales Coach. This week's episode will be on should I leave the proposal behind or not? Please listen, learn, and enjoy this exciting subject.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Hour of Sales Power. My name is Joe Crisara, and I am here to join you today. And the subject of our meeting today is, should I leave the proposal behind or shouldn't I? This is a very important subject because it can be a critical point in HVAC sales as to the information being left behind or not being left behind, and how critical it can be to your success, and truly separate you from what I call a level 1, DEFCON 1 type of sales professional, as opposed to being an also-ran who just kind of always wishes that he had sales or wishes that customers would call him back. So this is the difference between a real pro and somebody who's sitting on the bench. And like any kind of thing, like in sports, for instance, if you're an NFL quarterback, that could just be enough accomplishment for you. But if you want to be Tom Brady, this is the next step higher. And that's what we're talking about. This one habit or this one thing, whether you made a decision to go out there, find issues in people's homes, and then find out what's going on. They called you, they invite you in their home, and there's an issue. And whether or not you leave this information behind if you don't get the job right now is the critical thing. Do we leave it behind or don't we? That is the question. Now, it sounds like a Shakespearean quotation, but this thing may be, again, one of the most inspirational meetings we've had so far, and I hope that you enjoy it. And we're expecting our host, Rick Picard, to join us very shortly. He is on a sales call closing a deal from one of his tech-generated leads. And so I'm going to have to carry the show solo, so hang in there with me. And, of course, if you want to call in, don't forget to call in on our phone line. Our open line is 419-400-0202. And the code to enter the conference when you go on the phone line is 522910. And that will get you on the phone line. And when we open the lines, we'll be able to go ahead and get any comments or questions from you. So I will open the lines throughout the show, and we'll get your comments. Of course, I might do it sooner than later, given the fact that Rick is running a little bit late. Let's a little bit talk about the language of selling, and I want to begin by commenting on that and how important the language of selling is. What I mean by the language of selling is that word proposal. So should we leave our proposal behind is a good question. Why do we call it a proposal is anybody's guess. The word proposal, the word bid, and the word estimate, I believe, is a big mistake. To even use that language puts the salesperson at a disadvantage to start with. It's like saying that we're bidding on something as if the customer has something that we want as opposed to the other way around, which is really the truth. The customer would not call you out there if he did not want a solution from you. And so many times with the wrong language, we already kind of start off on the wrong foot. And yes, it is as terrible as it sounds. It's like, buyers come out there making you bid. The lowest bidder gets the job. But is that really the way it should work? Is a bid or an estimate really the way that people buy the finest products that they purchase for themselves? I don't think that you go out and get bids when you go looking for an iPod or when you look for some of the computer equipment you buy or some of the nice sound systems or the wheels for your car. You aren't looking for bids on that. You're just looking for the best product. And let's face it, I think a lot of us fall prey to the fact that our childhood and our memories about the way we purchase influence the way we think that customers might purchase as well. Well, taking this to a next step, this language kind of leads us into a situation that would bring us right into a thing where we're just part of the pack. And so you have to make a decision. Leaving your proposal behind definitely separates you from the pack. So when we say, should you leave it behind or shouldn't you leave it behind, I want to qualify a couple things here. First, I don't think anybody should leave the proposal behind. I'm just going to say that flat out. But I think that if you don't know what you're doing, that you probably should leave the proposal behind. If you don't have the strategy and you don't know what to do after you leave the proposal, after you don't leave it behind. You have to have a system that kind of encapsulates those customers, because you don't want to lose customers due to this process. You want this to gain more customers and sell jobs, and that's the purpose of this whole thing. But I would ask you a question. Generally speaking, if you were going to buy something important for your home, like landscaping or a furnace or a boiler or a new faucet, something that's going to be in the home for a long time, stereo system, anything, would you tend to buy this important thing that you don't know anything about from somebody who is more like a leader or somebody who's more like a follower? And that's what you have to kind of ask yourself. How do I want to be viewed by this customer? Do you want to be viewed with high integrity, or do you want to be viewed with low integrity? Do you want to be viewed as somebody who is in charge of this process, or somebody who is just kind of following through the process and really has no influence in the way the sales turns out? And I will tell you, this is the biggest PowerPoint to take control of your sales. If you are leaving proposals behind, the second that proposal or that presentation is left behind with that buyer, that is the second and that is the moment that you lose control of the sale. That's it right there. In a nutshell, it might be the most important moment that occurs on a sales call, and that's really my belief and my bottom line. Now, are you wondering how many times a buyer will actually call you back after you left behind a proposal? Well, this is interesting. A lot of people don't know this, but I did a study back in 2002. Of course, it's an informal study. I'm not part of a university or anything like that, but I'm able to do studies. What I did in 2002, I worked with a company in southern Wisconsin, and they had a lack of belief in the system. They weren't really sure that it would work or not. And what happened was at this company, I made a challenge. They weren't my clients yet. I said, tell you what, the next 100 calls you go on that you leave information behind, let's go ahead and make a note. And he took the bull by the horns. He made a study of this. He made a sheet up, and we tracked every call. And we did over 100 calls, 106 calls to be exact, under this kind of a study. And what we studied was, if we leave the information behind and then get the customer to agree to call us back at a certain day or time, how many times do you think that buyer called back at the exact date and time out of 106 people? Well, in case you're wondering, I won't leave you in suspense very much longer. The answer to that is nobody called back. Out of 106 people, not one customer called back, which again shows you the problem. This is the problem we have. We take faith in the buyer that they will follow through and they will go ahead and do what they say they're going to do, but rarely do they ever do it. Matter of fact, in that study of 106 customers, only 3 customers ever called back at all, meaning they called back afterwards to say they didn't get the job or they did get the job, but it wasn't a very high percentage of people who even bothered to call. Usually it takes a call by us to remind the customer to get it done. Rick, with that being said, we're going to take a little pause now. Rick, are you there on the phone yet? I thought I heard something starting out there.
Hey, how you doing?
How you doing, buddy? Go ahead, say something.
All right. Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
All right. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing great. You've been listening to me wax philosophical over here?
Yeah, just a little bit. Like I said, I was on a sales call, so I'm on my cell phone.
So, Rick, that's okay. Let me ask you a question, Rick. Do you see a problem with leaving the proposal behind? What's your take on? Just give me your overall take on this subject.
Well, since dealing with you, Joe, obviously before I didn't really see a problem with it. I used to do it all the time. But now it just doesn't make any sense to me, because all I'm doing is leaving them information that can be shared with my competitors. And that really wasn't a big deal before, because before I didn't do anything different than anybody else. So, it was just like basic proposal.
Yes, it didn't make any difference when you were doing the same as everybody else, right?
Right, it didn't really matter. But now that I'm doing something that is so much more beneficial to the company, where I'm doing all these different packages and programs and options, that to leave that information behind for someone else to mull through and learn from would be catastrophic to me, I feel. So I really feel the company can't afford to leave this proprietary information behind.
Well, especially from a company like yours, Rick, who invested so much money over the past couple of years, in me, teaching all the people at the shop and at the location, both management and employees how to use this process, you're right. It would be malpractice on any employee's part. And I think that any company who makes it a policy to release proprietary information that the company is paid for is simply not a very bright operator, right, Rick?
Right. It's just foolish. It's really a bad thing to do.
So what are some of the problems? Well, some of the problems are, if you leave your presentation behind, what you're really telling the customer is that you're not needed, that there's no value in you as a salesperson, and so therefore the customer could pretty much take a blank sheet of paper and just fill out their own presentation if they wanted to. It's almost like they could go online and buy it. Like the salesperson is not needed, right? I mean, Rick, do you ever get some people who say things like that to you, like they have a lack of respect for the salesperson? Do you ever feel that sometimes with buyers?
Oh, yes. I mean, I just had someone the other day who said to me, I don't know why they even had you come over here. I don't know why you just, I just couldn't tell you the $1,000. You could have mailed it to me.
You could have just mailed it. You don't even got to come out and look at the situation, right?
Right. Yeah. And obviously that didn't make me feel too good. It really made me feel needed, right, Joe?
Yeah, it's bad. Of course, we know you got poor self-esteem, right, Rick?
Absolutely. I was just heartbroken.
I'm sure if we asked everybody at your shop, they'd all say you lack self-esteem.
Absolutely. That's my problem. I have to work on that.
It's your Achilles heel. All right. So number two, it shows also, I think, that if you leave your proposal behind, or if you go ahead and leave that behind, that you've taken the time to create the proposal, to ask all the questions, to do the research, to take what's inside that head of yours, all the knowledge about plumbing, heating, electrical, and then release it. It shows that you have no value on your time. Rick, did you ever think about the waste of time that must be done by some salespeople just giving us information? What are your comments on that?
Oh, I don't really have to think about it, Joe, because I did it for so many years. I know exactly. I spent tons of time educating the customer and, really filling my candy, as you would say, not only in leaving the proposal, just in my whole presentation process, educating them so that they could go and buy it for something cheaper, So
right.
There was a lot of time and effort that went into that, and not to mention paper and ink, print out these proposals and leaving them with people.
Right. Well, on top of that, Rick, here's what I kind of find. I find that, if you leave the proposal behind and then just wait for a phone call, I think that is very poor. If you're a struggling salesperson who's really on the bubble and considering that maybe you don't feel like sales is a really good career for you because you've had such lack of success, to leave it behind and wait for answers certainly cannot be good for your self-image as a sales professional, can it? No,
it can't. It really just shows you don't value that what you do or your proposal very much. And really, it's not a good way to differentiate yourself from everybody else, that's for sure. Yeah,
how would you expect the customer to pay for your time and pay for your installation if you're showing that you don't value your time either, that there's no value on my time? I come out here for free and just cough it all up and let you have it. I don't know how people think that this produces or shows any value about what they do. And I think the worst thing you do is the moment you leave it behind is that you really lose control of the process, right, Rick? I mean, if you're going to go back to your boss, and you know what this looks like, right? When you go back to your boss and they ask you how that sales call you had go, and you, of course, have no idea how it's going because you left the information behind and there's no resolution, and you know the story. You've been on how many 100 calls you got to go on and hear the customer say that he's going to give you a call and he never calls you back before you realize that you're just not going to get a call back, right?
Right. And that's a good point. How many times have I heard a customer say to me, well, I'll give you a call one way or the other. I've never had anybody call me up, and all the years I've been doing this, that didn't call to give me the job. Yeah, as a matter of fact, we got that. You probably came in during that thing. I talked about that study we did in 2002 of 106 sales sequences where nobody called back at the promised time or date, and only 3 people bothered to call at all, letting them know what the situation was. I didn't hear that, but that's been my experience. I've never had anybody ever call me back after they said that they would. Oh, yeah, we'll call you back one way or another. If we didn't know, we'll call you. You did such a good job. Yeah, I don't think anybody would have a hard time believing that nobody would call back. If you've been doing this for a little while, you couldn't even be doing it for a couple months. You would realize that if you leave behind information and wait for a phone call back, you're going to be waiting a long time. As a matter of fact, I hope your life doesn't depend on it because you might as well put another nail in your coffin with that one, right, Rick? Right.
All right. Well,
yeah, it's just like with the dating scenes. It's don't call me, I'll call you. You know.
Yeah. What does that mean when you go ask a girl for a date and she says, "Yeah, don't worry, we'll give you a call back."
Yeah, it's going to make for a pretty lonely time.
or
no one's going to be calling you.
Of course, if you ask a woman, she'd probably say the same thing. How many guys have promised to call her back, right? As opposed to, I'll pick you up tomorrow. I'll give you a call, right? And how many women have heard that line before? It works both ways, doesn't it?
So we don't want to be falling for that, right, Joe?
No, that's the oldest one in the book. Hey, when a customer says, Rick, to me, don't call us, we'll call, when a customer says, hey, don't worry, I'll give you a call back, I always go, now, John, are you telling me the oldest line in the book, don't call us, we'll call you? Come on, if I fell for that one, what kind of a salesperson would I be? I always like to have a good fun laugh with that one, because you know what? If I fall for that one, I have to be the worst salesperson in the world to actually believe that somebody would call me back when they say, don't call us, we'll call you. That's like P.T. Barnum said, a sucker's born every minute, right?
Right, exactly.
Right. So what should your presentation, let's talk about presentations. So we're going to change the language of presentation proposals. We're not going to call it a proposal or an estimate or a bid. What we're going to call it is a presentation or solutions, okay? So right at the bat, I want to change that language, and let's stop talking about estimates. Let's stop talking about proposals, because this isn't a marriage, not a proposal. It's not an auction. It's not a bid like eBay, and this is certainly not an estimate. I'm not estimating. I'm giving you a firm price, and I'm gonna account on that price, right? So what is an estimate? An estimate, to me, creates solutions for customers. It's got to differentiate you from the pack. It has to give customers options for the easy way to get this done, and the way that they do no work and they have the most premium option, all the way down to the least expensive options, which they do a little bit more work. They have to call for their service and maintenance needs. It's got to persuade customers to take action, and the options themselves should be used as a negotiating tactic in this sense. It should eliminate the desire for having to shop around. When you make a good presentation, there should be no need to shop around. You've given them the best options and the worst options and options in the middle. And so when you give a good presentation, it creates status, quality, and it makes the company look good because it differentiates you, like you said, Rick. So a good presentation, if you made a good presentation, you should expect an answer at the end of the presentation. And that law of expectation should be working in your favor, because if you've done a good job and you've hit all the right notes, why shouldn't you get a yes or no, right?
Right.
So and the bottom line, I think, is this. Rick, I don't think that your boss deserves to get a yes every time, do you?
Absolutely he does.
He does? Okay. Well, but he's not going to get. But he does. He's a great guy, so he does deserve it. But I wish he would get them all. But he doesn't deserve a yes every time. But what does he deserve, Rick?
No, he deserves an answer. He deserves a yes or a no either way. That's what I owe him.
Yeah, so I think he deserves to get a conclusion to the call. He deserves, like you said, to get an answer to the call. I think that's really why what things we're doing. So, but I will tell you one thing, guys. I don't want to just irritate customers, because what would be malpractice would be for me to tell you to not leave your presentation behind, but not give you a few guidelines as to how to do it. We talked to that gentleman last week, and this was kind of inspired this meeting this week. Was last week the gentleman from Dallas, Texas. He might even be on the phone line. We'll see if we can scare him up from over in Texas, talking about how he did get a customer kind of upset with him when he didn't leave it behind, right? Now, Rick, do customers get anxious and anxiety when you say you're not going to leave it behind sometimes?
Well, they can. There has been occasion where it's happened to me, but I find it's best to set it up so that they understand, even before you make the presentation, that what the conclusion is going to be at the end of the presentation, a yes or a no. I mean, I think I've told you in the past that I'm not very good with not leaving it behind. So, if a customer says, well, you're going to leave that with me, I haven't been very good at not leaving it when they're going to get upset with me. So what I've done is I make sure that before I make my presentation, we already have an agreement on what the solution is going to be at the end of the presentation. So
right. Now, before you come to an agreement, Rick, one of the things you got to do is kind of clarify the decision factors, right? Because you have to figure out why they're doing this work, what the competition's role in this job is, if they have any role. Have they used people before? About your company? What's their perception of your company? And who else is involved with deciding? And finally, when they're hoping to make a decision and move forward. Those are all important factors to know, isn't it, Rick? Before you attempt, it wouldn't make sense to try to attempt to make an agreement when those factors have not been clarified or identified yet, right?
Right, exactly. Now, just to use a point, I just went to a furnace call just tonight, and I had them convince me of their need. They obviously need a new furnace. They're having problems with the power vendor with the furnace, and they really want to get it done. And I said to them, I just want to confirm, you're not going to make a decision on this tonight, right?
Yeah.
Right? And they said, oh, you're right. Yeah, no, we have this other company coming out tomorrow afternoon. I'm like, all right, so when do you think you'll be ready to make a decision? Well, I mean, we're probably going to be able to make it on Saturday. I said, all right, so what time on Saturday should I come back? Mm-hmm. So I'm going back there at 2 o'clock on Saturday. So, and then I said, all right, well, here's the thing. You mind if I ask you a question? They said, no. Well, just when I come back on Saturday and you don't like what I have to say, what are you going to say? And the customer said, well, I'm going to say no. I said, all right, but if you do like what I'm going to say, then what are you going to say? Well, I'm going to say yes. I said, all right, so we have it clear. When I come back, you're going to tell me yes or no, right? They said, oh, yeah, sure enough. So now I've set it up so that on Saturday when I go back, we already have it cleared up. They're going to give me a yes or no response. And so now there's really no, if they say no on Saturday, there's no reason for me to leave anything behind.
Yeah, why would you leave something behind when you've agreed to make a decision, right?
Right.
Excuse me. So, Rick, there's three factors here. Number one, get all the decision factors under control. Who's going to make a decision? When are they going to decide? And why are we doing this? Two, make sure you align your presentation on the same date that the decision will be made. So there's two fingers here. I'm on TV. You'll see those two fingers have got to line up. If you can make the decision date the same day as you're making a presentation, odds are you got a pretty good chance of getting the job. And the last thing is make sure you get an agreement as to, before you make a presentation, that what will happen after I make this presentation. And you don't kind of say go for yes. As a matter of fact, Rick, what's the first thing I always tell you to ask for? Do I tell you to say, are you going to buy this if I make a presentation? That's a silly question, right? What do I normally have you say?
Yeah, if you don't like what I have to say, what are you going to say? And if you do like what are you going to say? So I let them know that there's a definitive conclusion to what we're doing at the end of the presentation.
Right. Now, if you have a customer who wants to break that agreement, so you made an agreement. So what's important is you made an agreement, and I'm going to expand this a little bit further, that you don't just make an agreement before you make your presentation. Now, this is mainly on, like, equipment calls or equipment opportunity or bigger jobs, the kind of you want to call free. They were classic free estimate type of jobs, but opportunities. On service calls, we pretty much know this is all accelerated because there's not an issue on this. But on sales calls, it's a little different because you're out there giving this information, you're doing it all for nothing, and so therefore you deserve an answer, and you have a right to get that answer. So what happens when the customer wants to break their agreement? I mean, what can we do? And we look at ourselves. If we go ahead and let that customer break an agreement, Rick, what does it say about our integrity at that point? If the customer says, I want to think about it, can I keep this proposal? What does that say about our integrity at that point?
At that point, we really lose all credibility. So if we had an agreement up front and then the customer breaks it, and I don't call them on that, now I've lost credibility and I'm not really serious about what I'm doing, right? So if I make my presentation to them and I get I want to think about it, after that, what I'll say to them, Joe, you mind if I ask you a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Before I came in, we had we had an agreement that what was going to happen at the end of the presentation.
I'm supposed to tell you yes or no.
Okay. So, I just wondering, what did I do to make you feel as though you couldn't say yes or no?
Oh, you didn't do anything, Rick. It's just that I didn't know it'd be this much money.
All right. Well, which one are you looking at?
Well, like the third one. I like that one, actually.
All right, which one?
The third one.
The third one. Well, why are you looking at that one? I mean, look at it. For less money below that one. What do you think of this one below that?
No, I like the third one better, Rick. I don't want to go cheaper.
Well, well, tell me, what do you like about that, Joe?
Well, it's got the better warranties, the better service. It's the one I like.
All right, so what should I do?
Yeah, you're right. Let's just go ahead and do that one.
All right.
And that's how it sounds, right? That's kind of the music to your ears. You can kind of hear the music being played, right?
Right.
You probably heard that music quite a few times over the last year. After you sold about $5.5 million this year in residential replacement, you've got to have heard that a few hundred times, probably, huh?
Exactly.
So the bottom line is that you're right. Hey, you're not done. There's no reason to focus on not leaving the proposal behind. You got to reshift the focus on, well, hang on for a second, John. Why should I leave it behind? You have no interest in this, right? Like, I like what you did there, Rick. You basically reversed the question. It's a technique I call reversing and taking away. You say, well, John, why should I leave it behind? I mean, can we admit something? Like, you have no interest in this, right? And they go, no, I have an interest in the third one. Well, like, what's so good about that? And then the customer tells you all the good, they sell the job to you. Well, it's got the better warranties, and they start selling the job. Then, of course, in the end, you say, what should we do? Since they sold the job to you, it should be easy. They should just buy the job then at that point, right?
Exactly, right.
So, but there are some reasons. If you want reasons, if customers ask for reasons, don't you get some customers, Rick? I've seen this one a few hundred times myself. When I tell people, listen, John, I'm not going to be able to leave the proposal behind. I can't leave that presentation behind. That's not yours. That's ours. And they go, what? What do you mean? And they're dumbfounded, right?
Right.
And I go back into it. I say, well, you're not interested, right? And they go into the whole thing. They say, I still want to keep that. Can I still keep that? And I just say to them, I do have some reasons. If you want some reasons, I'm going to give you some. First of all, it's sales malpractice to leave the customer with that information. It's kind of like leaving a loaded gun with a child. It's just not a good idea because this is a lot of information and it's being left to interpret it, and it's going to kill your sale. I'm going to guarantee that you're going to. It's like, I call it malpractice. Secondly, this is proprietary information the company's paid for, and it's not fair to you and to the company to give this information up unless you get an agreement to go ahead with the work. Thirdly, you got to refuse to do free consulting because, Rick, where is this information going to wind up eventually if you keep leaving it behind? If you left hundreds of proposals behind, eventually who's going to be seeing this information?
Definitely a competition will, for sure.
Yeah, so the competition is going to be reading this. Pretty soon, you're going to have the competition's logo with your presentation sheet on it, right?
Exactly.
You're going to have them just take a stamp and put their stamp right on the presentation sheet. Also, don't you think it's just bad customer service, Rick? I mean, you see anything about that?
Yeah, really, it's just for me to leave it with them, for them to interpret it on their own, really is bad service. And I'll tell the customer, I said, you know what? For me to leave this with you to try to figure out all these different options and on your own, it really would be bad service on my part. I'm more than happy. I'm very willing to come back anytime you want and go over this as many times as you want. What time would be good for me to come back?
Yeah. So you're putting service first and defaulting to service first. So if you're getting a person wants to think about it, now's not the time to leave. They're saying basically, I need help to think about this. Good service is I hang in there and I help you. I don't leave you, right?
Another one, Joe, they'll say it's like, oh, I want to keep this and I really like everything you did, but I want to show it to my wife. Mm-hmm.
Now, who's the sales guy? You or him, right?
Right, exactly. That's what I say to him. I'll say to him, you know what? What do you do for a living? Oh, I'm a banker. I'm like, I know I wouldn't be a very good banker. Who do you think would do a better job explaining this to your wife? You as a banker or me as a heating and air conditioning specialist?
How's that go usually? What do they usually say? They usually laugh, right?
No, yeah, they laugh. They say, yeah, I guess you're right. I said, so I'm more than happy to come by anytime you want and to meet with your wife and you and we'll, I'll represent to her because I know I'm going to do a better job than you.
Right.
And they'll laugh. Yeah, I know. Yeah, you will. Yeah, well, you told me I did such a good job. I'd like to show her what a good job I can do.
Right.
So
that's right.
When is your wife going to be here? So
yeah, who's the HVAC or plumber or electrician anyway? You or them, right? So why should they do your job for you? It doesn't make sense to have them do your job, right?
I don't close loans for them.
That's right. You don't. If they're a nurse, you don't go to the hospital and start doing nursing, do you?
Right, exactly.
That's a good one, Rick. Hey, Rick, let's talk. I just want to say one thing. I'm going to make a follow-up on this whole point here. And where a lot of salespeople say they think it's weird that you wouldn't leave a proposal behind, wouldn't leave the company information behind, I'm going to tell you how off code you are with the way normal business. This is just bad business to leave things like this behind. I'm going to tell you why. Imagine, Rick, if you went into a Walmart or a Nordstrom's or a Starbucks or any store, any national chain store. Imagine if you had a camera and just started taking pictures of their displays and their pricing. What do you think would happen in about 20 seconds?
Security would be there to escort you out.
You would be, I tell you what, try this sometime. Go get yourself a camera, just a cheap camera at the dime store. And is there a dime store anymore? I mean a pharmacy. And you can tell how old I am, huh, Rick? Dime store, that's a funny one. So, so go into a Walgreens or a CVS and I tell you what, buy the camera at Walgreens and then start taking pictures of the displays at Walgreens with the prices on the display and see what happens at the Walgreens or see what happens at Nordstrom's or at Walmart. I'll bet you wouldn't be in there 30 seconds. Matter of fact, I brought cameras into Walmart before to take pictures of certain things. And they said, you can't, I've been warned before I even go in, you can't, hey, just so you know, that thing's not on, is it? You can't use that camera in here, you know that, right? And they watch you like a hawk. And tell you what, when I was one time in Nordstrom's, I had my camera with me in Nordstrom's, they followed me around like I was a Unabomber, for God's sake. They thought I was going to blow the store up or something like that. I mean, so.
I do look like them.
Well, of course, I do look a little bit like Kaczynski, right? So, well, he's from Illinois. He's from the Chicago area, too. So we're kind of brothers, you know. We used to hang out and play darts together. No, I'm just teasing. We never did that. But so we just had a few drinks. We didn't play darts. But, I'm just teasing. So, this is a fun show, Rick. I'm glad you could join us even on the cell phone. Thanks for joining us anyway, by the way. So I want to say that you're off code by thinking that it's normal to give your company information out. This is not normal. This is just bad business. And let's just say that. Now, Rick, as you said before, you don't want to get customers ticked off at you, so there's got to be a plan B, right? Sometimes, let's say you got a customer who looks really close, and you got a good relationship going, and you feel like you could say almost anything to this customer. Like you feel your relationship is really there. I think it's okay to have plan B if you want to. I think you should go through all the stuff you can to try to help the customer get the sale and help them come to a conclusion. But I would say it's okay to have a plan B, provided there's some rules involved with plan B, right, Rick? I mean, you just can't have plan B and leave a proposal behind just because you get along with people. And so
I have a couple of them. So like if I give them a presentation and they really want to think about it for a day or they seem really interested, first thing I'll do is I'll have them go pick out which one they're considering thinking about.
Right.
I'll pick that one. And so I won't leave them my whole presentation. I'll leave them that one with their stipulation. All right, so how long do you need to think about this? And believe it or not, I've had people say, well, how about till tonight?
Right.
I've said, all right, well, if 7 o'clock, but I'll come back at 7 o'clock. Or I'll come back the next day or whatever. But the plan is I make a definite appointment when I'm going to come back and pick up the presentation, that portion of my presentation.
Right.
That's mine, and if I was to return to the office without that presentation, I would be in trouble. But
yes, so if you want to go to plan... Yeah, go ahead, Rick. So if you want to go to plan B is that, okay, you've evaluated this customer to say, listen, I'm really getting along with these people. I know everybody by the first name. I've known them for years, whatever. You got a good relationship, and you can feel it's good. But if you don't feel it's a good relationship, absolutely you cannot use plan B. Right, Rick?
Right.
I mean, there's no reason for plan B because your relationship is not there. If you can feel that there's a wall between you and the customer, then why are you leaving information behind with a stranger? You can't trust this person at all. You haven't gained a relationship yet, right? So first of all, it's got to be a customer who you've got a good relationship with that you can trust. Secondly, like you said, Rick, get down to which one they are interested in. Thirdly, set a deadline, of no more than 24 hours. If you want to say the worst case, maybe over the weekend. If you're there on a Friday or Saturday, I'll give you till Monday. But I'll tell you what, Monday at 4 o'clock, or what time should I come back on Monday? I'm going to come back. If they say, no, don't come back, we'll call you, then absolutely do not leave the information behind. Then do not use Plan B. Abort Plan B. Plan B means that I'll leave the information behind. I'm going to set a deadline, and I'm going to come back at the end of the deadline to pick up my presentation or pick up a check. And that's Plan B. I mean, it's fair, right? You give I'm not saying you can't have it. Then if you want to keep it, I'll let you keep it, John. I'll give you the weekend till Monday, but I'll come back here at 4 o'clock on Monday afternoon, and I'm going to pick up the proposal or pick up a check. And tell you what, if you haven't made a decision by 4 o'clock on Monday, John, I'm going to tell you it's over. I'm going to tell you it's a no, because if you can't make a decision in 3 days, you've already had 4 other estimates here. We've already determined the decision process. So if you can't make that decision in 3 days or in 24 hours, then really you aren't going to go with my company. Right, Rick? We've got to be honest at that point, right?
Right, exactly.
So if you get back there, then obviously you can either close the job or close the deal or close the file at that point, right? But I will tell you one thing, Rick. On those kind of leave-behinds, it's kind of like you should be prepared to lose the sale, I would say, because even that, I would say it's not really a solid thing. But I have sold quite a few like that. I would say percentage-wise, probably, 40, 50% I have closed like that, leaving it behind like that. But I would say it's not a high percentage, would you?
Right. I would say 50%, maybe for me a little bit more. Because, I have found that every once in a while there is someone who's just the type of person who likes to sit on things for a day. And it's worked out pretty well for me, but it's only because I've done it like 10 times. That's it.
Right, exactly.
It's not a very common occurrence.
Exactly. So, all right, so we're going to just kind of recap the meeting here again. And, Rick, again, I want to thank you very much for joining us and for taking the time between your sales calls. And here he is. I'm not even sure what kind of to get to the point where you call between the calls. Wait a second. We do have a comment online. Gary Bailey said, if you forget to get a yes or no commit on the first trip, how do you recover? So, Rick, let's say that if you forget, let's say when you're on the first trip that you forget to get an agreement, Gary is wondering, on that second call, when you come back and make that presentation, how can you recover now at that point?
Right. Just right up front, so you can just say to them, I forgot to mention it just the other day, but here's kind of my policy on this type of situation. And I have to ask them the questions again. I'm going to show you my presentation. If you don't like what I have to show you today, what are you going to say? And just go through that again. I'm going to say no. And if you do like what I have to show, what are you going to say?
Right.
Say yes. All right. So we both agree we're going to have a definitive answer.
So I think it's important, Gary, that what Rick is saying is that if you failed to get that commitment on the first call, that anytime at all, actually, right, Rick, before you make the presentation, it's fine to get that agreement now. But you must get that agreement that when I make a presentation, I want this to come to a conclusion.
Right.
Hey, somebody's swearing on my chat room.
Oh.
Oh, my goodness. Hey, excuse that. It must be... That's not a contractor. It's somebody else out there. So you don't need any of this censored. How do you recover? Who gives a? Oh my goodness, that's not very good. So anyway, we're gonna move forward here. So Rick, I'm gonna go ahead and recap this whole thing. You ready? You with me on this?
Yes. All
right. So basically, if you leave the sales proposal behind on an estimate, we all agree that it brings no value to the process. Number 2, it shows your relationship with the buyer is not very good. Number 3, the customer must make a do-it-yourself proposal or presentation, and your sales process is weak and dysfunctional. If the customer sees your sales process is weak and dysfunctional, they got to wonder what else is dysfunctional about you and the company. And 5, if you fail to differentiate your services, how can you expect the customer to purchase something from you as opposed to one of the pack? And finally, it shows your proposal has really confused the customer to the point where they really can't come to a conclusion on this call. Would you agree with all those statements, Rick?
Yes, I would.
Rick, do you have anything you want to add in closing before I try and go ahead and open the phone lines here one time?
No, I think you covered everything very well, Joe.
I think the bottom line here is understand this one principle. The moment you decide to leave that presentation behind, that is the moment that you lose control of your selling process. It turns you in from a sales professional who has a process that we can identify to a sales lotto winner who just puts a proposal out there and spins the wheel of fortune, hoping for the best. Right, Rick?
Right.
And I think that's no way to do business, is just hoping for the best, is there? Hope is not a plan, is it?
No, it's not a plan. And like you always say, Joe, you're either on the customer system or your system. Now, you're in the houses every day, dealing with new people every day. They only deal with so many salespeople in a year. You should be much better at it, and you should be much better at getting them onto your system, which is a functional system of making a decision at the appropriate time, and really cutting through all the I want to think about it and all the stalls the customers have, and you should be able to get them to only allow you to make a presentation when they're ready to make a decision.
Right. All right, we're going to go try and open the phone line, Rick, and see what happens, okay?
All right.
All callers are unmuted.
All right, is anybody on the phone line who wants to make any comments or questions? Go ahead and say something to Rick. He's on the line right now, waiting for you to talk to him. Go ahead. Anybody out there?
Hey, Rick, Steve from Dallas. Appreciate y'all going over this week. It looks good. I've took some good notes, and we'll see what you got for next week. But I like what I hear tonight.
Rick, what did you get out of this meeting tonight? What did you pull out of this? I know because actually you inspired the meeting, so good job there. You see that report? I wrote that report on. It's on the internet on our website. I actually made a special report download that's up there. So if any of you want to read this information, I put this all in writing. It's in a special report called "Should I Leave My Information Behind?" or "Should I Leave My Proposal Behind?" Right? What did you get from this, Rick? What's your Rick from Dallas? What's your take on anything you learned tonight that was missing from the approach we talked about before?
First off, my name's Steve, Mr. Joe.
I'm sorry, Steve.
Anyway, make the agreement before the presentation. Give me a yes or no if we're going to do something before the end. If I'm going to give you this presentation, I'd like to have a yes or no at the end of the presentation.
Yeah, especially because you're going to make a second trip, Steve. It's like you're going through more effort, so therefore I don't expect any payment for this effort, only a decision.
Sure.
I mean, and that's really the key thing is that if you're going to make 2 trips out here, let's face it, another customer is going to pay the price for you making that second trip, right? Because you could be somewhere else at this point, and it's using up company resources, and so therefore the only thing you don't deserve a yes every time. It'd be nice, but you don't deserve that. What you do deserve is to get a decision for sure, right? And that decision, I tell you what, if your integrity is high, you will get a much better chance at getting a decision than if you didn't, right?
Yeah, I mean, I tell people all the time, I said I'm a big boy, I don't mind even being told no, but if you don't want to do business with me, I have a lot of other time and things we can be doing and other customers we can deal with, so we have to have thick skin as a salesperson, so. Mm-hmm.
All right, great. Well, thanks, Steve, for chiming in, and I'm glad hope you enjoyed this segment, and we hope to see you again someday soon. And thanks for showing up here again this week.
It was good. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Is anybody else on the phone line who wants to go ahead and speak up and say something? Hey, we got a little issue with the chat room. It looks like it's a public thing, so we got a lot of people from the general public just making weird comments. So just ignore that. Anybody else on the phone line who'd like to speak up and ask Rick a question or make any comments?
Hey, Joe, this is Ken from Ohio.
Hi, Ken. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Excellent. Ken Caldwell from just outside of Cleveland.
Yep.
So how things going?
I've been going on quite a few calls lately. I've been doing like more indoor air quality type stuff, and like through the energy program here, the Home Performance by Energy Star. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of having trouble getting people. It's almost like they don't know. Like when they're buying a furnace or air conditioner, they kind of know what they're deciding on, and that they have an actual need for it. And with this other stuff, it's sort of like creating an urgency. It seems like it's kind of tough. I mean, they're not getting any other quotes from anybody, and sometimes they're just kind of shocked at the prices. And I'm having kind of trouble just doing, just getting them to commit.
So you're not getting very much interest or desire when you come. This is now home energy improvements we're talking about, right?
Yeah, it's like air sealing, duct sealing, and
So
filters, indoor air quality kind of stuff.
now, Rick, are you there, Rick? Still?
Yeah, I'm here. Yep.
Rick, when you sell something that's a little bit off the beaten path, you've had sales that aren't just heating and air conditioning sales. You do other things too, ventilators or something like that. That's a little bit off the beaten path. How do you get people to get interest in that to where they are? That's a good question Ken raises, because with furnaces and ACs, he sounds like he's having a okay job getting their interest because they're calling because it's cold, obviously. But with something like air quality or just dust, how do you how do you create desire in the customer? What do you think?
Well, what I do is I always reverse, and it seems to work very well for me. But I'll say to them, if I was to guess, I would guess that you're absolutely satisfied with the quality of the air in the house. You have no dust. Everything is absolutely fine. You have no allergens, and you're really happy with the quality of the air in the house, right?
So that's a good way of doing it. So basically, then the customer starts to sell you. So Ken, I would say to you that by what you're saying, you have to be more skeptical when you walk in than you are probably. You're probably too easily sold that this customer is going to come to a conclusion with this, that they actually do have an interest in it. So you have to get sold more. If you got that feeling inside of you, Ken, that these people really have no idea what I'm selling them, or they should know about they should know what problem they're trying to solve, so they should be selling you on the problem. So you got to turn the table.
Can I give an example of that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I think they understand, that they want to have something done, but it's like to get them to say, hey, I'm going to make a decision on Friday or something is a little bit tougher, because they don't have they're not facing a no heat issue or no air
Yeah, but what you have to raise there, Ken, is that your company resources are being used here, and you deserve to get a conclusion to this. You got to raise that issue.
Okay.
So you have to be the one who says, John, I know it doesn't seem very important to you, but because I'm using up some company resources here, I could be in front of other customers. I think it's only fair that we bring this to a conclusion one way or the other within a period of time. So what period of time can you give me that you can come to a conclusion on this? Right? You with me on that?
Yeah. I just, a lot of times,
You got to raise that point that...
Before that, because they're not... you're asking them to make a decision on something that they're not even familiar with,
If they aren't familiar with it, then I wouldn't make a presentation. If they don't know what they're hoping to get from this, and there's no interest in it, then I would never make a presentation. I wouldn't waste your time.
Okay.
If I don't got somebody who's completely begging me to give this presentation, then why would I give it? I tell you what, Ken, the best presentation you're ever going to give is the one you don't give at all, the one that you hold back.
Okay.
You with me on that? Because if you hold back the presentation, then you're really going to find what interest these people have.
Okay.
If you tell them I'm not going to give you, John, I'm not going to give you a presentation. I don't see why I should, because right now it seems like you just have no interest in this stuff, and I'm not sure why you even called. I just called just to kind of talk about this stuff, because we can always just talk on the phone. We don't got to talk here. I didn't know you just had. We should just cancel the call. And let's just cancel the call and call me back when you're ready. And when you do that, you're defining a moment right now in the call, Ken, whether or not this customer has an interest or whether they're just going to pull your chain.
Right. And I think, too, though, you'll find out you create more interest in them by reversing it on them. Like, for instance, when I used to see problems with duct systems, I knew there was a problem with it, and I wanted to correct the problem because I wanted the system to work right. Like I told you in the past, I would say things like, you must not be getting the air on the second floor. There's no way with this second. Oh, no. And then the customer would say, oh, it works fine. But now I will just say to them, if I was to guess, everything on the second floor works fine, and the air is really balanced and even in the house. And they're like, are you kidding me? We freeze up there in the wintertime, or we sweat up there in the summertime. Well, all right, if I could come up with a solution to that, you wouldn't want to hear that, would you? Oh, absolutely. I'd love to hear that. And now there's some anticipation in my presentation because they've already told me that it's something they're interested in. You know what I mean? Whereas if I tried to tell them that the system was bad, now, I haven't created an interest or got them to be interested in it by reversing it.
Yeah.
Eric, but if you tell them, all right, now, let's, I'll come back and, you can't really say I'll come back and make if you could say you're going to come back and make a presentation to them, they don't really know even what lines you're going with, like with a solution for that. I mean, if you're offering them air balancing or duct sealing or something like that, I mean, when you sit down and talk with them about that, it's like a whole new concept to them, really.
Well, Ken, it goes back to what are they hoping to accomplish with this?
Right.
And you can't make a customer be interested in something that they're not.
Clue as to what.
So what made you think? What made you think air balancing would be something that would benefit them? Ken, are you there? Ken, you there?
Yeah.
So the question is, you got to be sold that this customer would benefit from air balancing before you present it. Now, I would never make a presentation if I wasn't convinced of that. If the customer didn't convince me, actually, the customer's got to sell me on the problem before I start presenting something to them. I feel that, Ken, what I'm seeing in your situation is that you're going to the presentation too soon when you haven't been completely convinced that this customer has more or less begged you for the solution. Because if they did that, they would come to a conclusion then. Usually when it comes to this type of thing, usually the problem is always screwed up right at the beginning. Right when you first meet the customer, you lose a lot of the scarcity is lost because you're there saying things that you're here to do something, and you're not here to do anything. You got to get sold first. The very first thing on your call you got to do is be sold as to what we're doing out here. Ken, you want me on that?
Yeah. Make
no assumptions like you're going to go in with a crappy attitude. The next time you go out there, let's say the last couple calls you went to, you had a good attitude, and man, I hope they're going to buy something. Forget that. Go out there with a crappy attitude. Say, John, why did you call about this stuff? I'm surprised you even called. Why is it that you called? Well, we just saw the Energy Star ad. Yeah, but a lot of people see that. I mean, you got no interest in it, right? And if I had to guess, this house looks pretty dust-free. Am I correct? And there's no dust in here, right? No, there's a lot of dust. I mean, yeah, but you can live with it. You don't need to do anything. You're not doing anything about it anytime soon, right? So you got to be really skeptical, Ken, and make the customer sell you. Now, I'm going to guarantee, I know you, Ken, for a while. I'll probably guarantee you've never done that. Would that be correct?
No, I have. It's just
wait a second. You have. Wait a second.
But I just find that people, they don't even really know what. I mean, when you go out, like we go out and do a blower door test on it.
Well, hang on for a second. Why would they call for a blower door test?
Well, that's part of the Energy Star program.
Yeah, but what's inspiring the call? It's free, so it's just because it's free?
No, it's not free, but I mean, they're just, they're looking for ways to save energy mainly. I mean, a lot of them don't have a specific.
So you can sell them a punch list. Hey, listen, I've done over 800 blower door tests myself. Brendan Reed, I put a lot of money in his pocket, believe me. And so I've done a lot of blower door tests, and I've sold millions of dollars in blower door repairs, okay? But I will tell you one thing, is that those kind of calls, you definitely got to be sold hard. You got to sell me that. Now, I'll tell you what, I sell that report, the report about what to do, Ken, for your home, for about $2,000.
Really?
That's what I'll sell that for. Just for me to do the blower door test, it might be $190, $200. For me to give you that report, a punch list of what you should do to improve your energy of your home, it's going to be about $1,800 more if you want that. That's my last option is to give you my findings. To give you, if you want to keep the sheet with the presentation and the findings, the punch list and the presentation, I'll go ahead and give it to you. It's only going to cost $1,800 more. That's what I do. That's how Uncle Joe rolls, okay? And I'll tell you what, you talk to Anthony from Clover Heating up in Westchester. He sold between 6 and 10 of those energy reports for about $2,000, between $1,500 and $2,000 he sold them for over the past 2 weeks. So that approach does work.
So if somebody wants to make their own repairs, you're just selling them the report, huh?
You sell them the report. That's the bottom option.
Okay.
Sell it for $800. Sell it for something. You already did the work, right?
Right.
Get something out of it. So that's the do-it-yourself is the bottom option. You know what happens? You tell people do-it-yourself on home energy repairs. They start looking at the other ones. Well, hang on. I'm not going to do all that. You say, okay, you're going to need to get some pink board. Go get some mastic. Go get some breathing masks. And pretty soon they're saying, how much does this cost to fix it? How much does it cost for you to do it? All right, anybody else out there? Thanks, Ken. Thanks for calling. I appreciate that.
Thanks for the help, Joe. Thanks, Rick.
And Ken, we can talk privately too about that, okay?
Okay, appreciate it.
I'll give you a call later. All right, anybody else on the phone line who wants to talk? We're going to wrap it up pretty soon here. Anybody else on the phone line who wants to go and add in their 2 cents? Hello? All right, Rick. Well, I guess that just about... Anybody out there? Who's out there?
No, it's me. I said good thing because I'm almost at my next sales call.
All right, good. Well, Rick, I want to thank you for coming online with us tonight and for being part of the show. I'm going to send you an extra tin of cookies that I have left over from the holidays, just like to re-gift it and give it to you, okay?
Yeah, those steel cookies, that'll be great.
Hey, by the way, Rick, I had a great time with you. Rick joined me out in Las Vegas for a weekend before Christmas. We had a great time, and actually we got a video we're going to be posting with Rick and me at the Grand Canyon, and Rick almost fell into the Grand Canyon, right, Rick?
Yeah, it's because you were pushing me.
I would never do that to my best friend. You kidding?
Humpty Dumpty was pushed.
All right, everybody. Hey, don't forget, Rick, I'll say goodbye to you. Thanks a lot, and have a nice one. For all of you, we are now taking orders. We now have 7 people signed up for the Total Immersion class in Los Angeles. So go on the internet, go to www.contractorselling.com. If you're interested in the live training we have with the 6 days of training, an iPod with 26 hours of audios on it. You get a DVD video of me doing the presentation. You get a tape of you doing the presentation, handling 6 objections, as well as 4 different books and a ton of information and 5 weeks of coaching afterwards, personal coaching by me to show your improvement. For all of you who want to sign up right now, I tell you one thing we did is we are holding all of the Total Immersion classes are being held in Los Angeles. There's no more traveling, except for we have one class in Baltimore. That class in Baltimore on the East Coast is $2,500 to come to that class. If you come to Los Angeles instead, it's for ContractorSelling.com members, $1,647 or $1,797 if you're a non-member. So if you want to come to training, it's a lot less money than it was before because we're not going to travel and we have a place that's going to reduce our costs, so therefore we can pass that savings on to you. And just so you know, this last week we hit 600 members at ContractorSelling.com. We now have 603 members for the going into this next week. I want to thank all of you out there for spreading the word. And I tell you what, I need your help getting the word out there about ContractorSelling.com and everything that we do for contract. This is as Bill O'Reilly would say, this is a no spin zone, right? And this is a no spin zone. I don't blow smoke up your rear. This is not the watered down training that you would normally get from other sources. This is definitely specific, and we're going to help you. If you want to call me, anytime you want to call me, you give me a call toll free. The phone number is 877-764-6304. Heck, I even pay for the call. Thank all of you for joining us, and good night.